Now to NBC10's Vince Latanzio. He's been following today's developments, the response in Philadelphia. And Vince, I mean, you know, you're a Philadelphian. You and I are both from the area. I grew up just outside the city of Montgomery County, and we know it is a blue city. So it's not surprising that we're seeing these crowds gathered. But leading up to today, there's obviously been concern about peaceful protests, celebratory protests met with potentially violent action. So fill us in on what you're seeing.
Yeah, you know what, Rosemary, I think that a lot of people were concerned, to your point, about what was happening outside of the convention center over the past couple of days with both sides, both supporters of counting the vote and protecting the vote and supporters of President Trump. There was some concern about it not being peaceful, but we have not seen any issues with anything like that. And man, look at that photo right there, that video. That's from our sky camera looking down. That's the north side, the north portico of City Hall there, looking north on Broad Street. The Mason Hall is up on the right left. And here's a live picture from Skyforce 10. I walked up I live in Center City. I walked up on my way here to the Comcast Technology Center, the NBC10 studios today, and there was lots of cars honking, lots of people cheering, a lot of happy people all around. I did not see any issues. Lots of people holding signs, people having a couple drinks, and just celebrating the win. You know, there was a lot of muck thrown at Philadelphia by the president and his campaign. He famously said bad things happen in Philadelphia, and as we all know, speaking that way about Philadelphians, we take a lot of pride, and I think that became a real call to arms in terms of making sure that they were rallying around supporting the city and you know, showing that they would not stand for, you know, that kind of talk about the city's pride. But we're seeing there this crowd that we were told, like you mentioned at the beginning of our broadcast here, that they were on Independence Mall and making their way down Market Street to the City Hall area. And if we can take a look on South Broad Street, we have a view from our Kimmel Center campus camera that will give us a look of what it looks like. There it is. Not as big of a crowd as it was before, but about an hour ago, this was completely filled with people who have been streaming all over the city. I've been seeing pictures on Twitter of a gigantic paper mache eagle being carried down the street. We haven't seen that yet on our photos and our cameras here, but as you know, we have crews out there. And this is a live look from Washington, D.C., right near Lafayette Park. This is Black Lives Matter Plaza. And if you remember during the campaign, famously, there were protests that were happening outside the White House against President Trump. This is the same area where people were tear gassed and removed from there while they were peacefully protesting. The president then went out and held what many call a photo op. It was a photo op, holding up a Bible in front of the church there. But you see nothing but jubilation there right now. People exercising their First Amendment rights, celebrating what is happening today, where Joe Biden has become projected to become the 46th president of the United States. And I think it's important to mention also Kamala Harris is now the first woman to become vice president, highest office in the land, first person of color to hold the office of the vice presidency when she is eventually sworn in January. It's just a really, really monumentous day, here in the United States.
Presumably when President-elect Joe Biden addresses Congress, he will say to Madam Vice President, good evening, Madam Vice President. Good evening, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
So, yeah, an historic day for the country. And,
you know, I've heard from many people over the past couple of days and over the campaign, and you could definitely speak to this, I'm sure, seeing yourself represented in the elected leaders, that goes a long way for young people and for anyone. And
that may have been what certainly helped to push this vote. I mean, obviously, we know the pandemic. And the response to it and where we are in terms of handling this pandemic and a path forward in as it relates to the country's safety, well-being, and the potential for a vaccine. That one of the many factors that voters decided on, Vince.
Yeah, and you know what? There's a sign there. We just moved away from it. Skyforce 10 just moved away from it, but it says the people have spoken. And, you know, it has been a hard 8 months for folks, 9 months. There it is at the bottom of your screen there, right near the time and temperature there. It's a large white banner. Joe Biden won the popular vote. Of course, that's not how an election is decided here in the United States. It's very unique with our electoral college, but he won the popular vote by 74.4 million so far. President Trump also has the second largest vote total in history with 70 million votes. So, the country is going to take time to heal, and Joe Biden has said over and over again, and we've heard from him over the past couple of days after Election Day, that he is going to be a president for all Americans and trying to start that healing process.
Let's push in Skyforce 10 if you can. Vince, talking about those signs out there at City Hall. Let's push in Skyforce 10 right at the entrance there to City Hall. You see that other banner that's just opposite the sign that says the people have spoken. It says good things happen in Philadelphia. And for those who've been keeping score at home, this is a reference to what President Trump said about Philadelphia during the first presidential debate, in which he said bad things happen in Philadelphia. And it was in regards to his claims that poll watchers were not allowed to be present at the election offices, the satellite election offices in Philadelphia. We know that in the past few weeks, the city opened up these additional offices so that people could come in, drop off their mail-in ballot. If they had their mail-in ballot at home, wanted to come to one of these election offices, fill it out, and again, leave it there, in essence, cast their vote, they could do that. The courts ruled these are, and certainly the Secretary of State in Pennsylvania spoke out against this to the opposite, that those election offices are not polling places where certified poll watchers are allowed on Election Day, and thus people weren't being kept out. This was a place that people are allowed to bring their ballots, drop them off, and so there you see the opposite in that sign that says good things happen in Philadelphia. And Vince, we're taking a wider picture above from looks like City Hall, JFK, looks like the Boulevard and Broad Street.
Building.
Yep.
Yeah, right there. And you can see there's a large number of people. It seems that there's a convergence here on North Broad Street, which is not far from the Pennsylvania Convention Center, which has been the epicenter of the nation's eyes over the past couple days, as Philadelphia, in addition to the rest of the state, but Philadelphia had the most mail-in ballots in the state, with more than 337,000 mail-in ballots, and those mail-in ballots are why Pennsylvania turned blue for Joe Biden. So we've seen large crowds like this in Center City for days now. Large party just like this, no issues, a lot of people debating, and it really gives some hope that we can have our public discourse and have real discussions about policy and issues as we move forward, and look to a future here, in the next 4 years.
Especially considering we have seen rioting as it relates to other events that have happened in the Philadelphia area.